road to Formula One begins here. However, you must first win here before you can win there. But win here, and you might one day find yourself winning here, here, or even here.
International Formula 3000 Championship. This is the pre-race show for the 7th round of the championship from the Silverstone circuit in Northamptonshire. I'm Rick DeBrol alongside David Hobbs and Steve Matchett. There you see the cars on pit lane just getting ready to go out and check out the track. Now, 2 weeks ago in France, we had our first repeat winner of the season when Giorgio Pantano scored his 6th career F3000 victory. So let's take a moment to take a look back at that round number 6. Giorgio Pantano started on the pole. There you see him in the blue Durango car, looking to become the first repeat winner of 2003. And indeed, he was able to do it. At the start, he did it because he was able to hold off the championship leader, Bjorn Verdheim. And the two basically were able to check out early on.
Whistling through the French countryside at great speed, but unfortunately Yannick Schroeder's day would end before he had a chance to begin, as he can't even get the car off the line. So desperate day there for Yannick Schroeder. Town and Bell got a little bit wide here on lap 4 after a wheel banging incident and took a long drive through the gravel. Didn't seem to do much damage, but it was much to the surprise of the Arden team.
In fact, Bell had been battling with this guy, Nicholas Chiesa, who a little bit later on lap 15, spun and knocked himself out of the race.
The winner at Monte Carlo, the surprise winner at Monte Carlo. Then, in a scene reminiscent of Europe on lap 24, batting for 6th, Patrick Friesacker here tries a similar move on Jeffrey Van Hooydonk, but his good friend Townsend Bell tried on him with comparable results. And Friesacker would drop right down to 11th. Here you see it again, going down the inside at that 180 degree. Really didn't have a prayer of that one. The wheel just spun him around, dropped to 11th.
Up front, it was Giorgio Pantano leading flag to flag, becoming the first two-time winner in Formula 3000 this year. More importantly, he got the 6th victory of his Formula 3000 career. And where will this take him? Now, let's take a look at the points, because the important thing for Bjorn Verdheim is by finishing 2nd, he is still up there in the points. These are the results of the race. Giorgio Pantano, the winner. Bjorn Verdheim in 2nd. Ricardo Sperafico managing to finish 3rd. Antonio Liuzzi was 4th. Tony Schmidt 5th. And Jeffrey Van Hooydonk with Astromega finished 6th, although he is going to be missing today's race as a result of funding. Yannick Schroeder was 7th. Rafael Jean-Maria was 8th. Derek Hill was 10th. Patrick Friesacker 11th as a result of all that. And Townsend Bell, unfortunately, back in 12th.
Yeah, Townsend Bell's season not going like it should do, driving those Arden cars. Toccocello down in 13th there, and of course he was the winner just a couple of weeks before in Europe.
As I was saying, the most important thing for Bjorn Verdheim is by finishing 2nd, he stretched that lead out a little further. He's got 42 points. Giorgio Pantano, though, by virtue of the victory, has now jumped into 2nd.
He's jumped into 2nd, but just look at it. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, all within about 4 points. Very tight battle for 2nd.
The American's still back there. Townsend Bell, as you can see, back in 14th. And Derek Hill is in 16th. He only has 4 points, but bad news for Derek Hill fans. He is going to be missing today's race, apparently as a result of money. Now, Steve, talk about team points.
Team points. After 6 of the 10 rounds of the 2003 season, Arden International out there in the first place spot with 47 points. Durango Formula in 2nd on 37. Red Bull Junior, 3rd spot with that 31. Colony 3, the F3000 team, the former F1 team, 28 points in 4th spot. Right down there at the bottom of the field, look, Brand Motorsports no longer taking part in this season's event. 0 points on the board.
And as usual, the driver has still had a lot to say about France, even when Peter caught up with him earlier this week.
After 2 relatively difficult races, Giorgio Pantano jumped back to the top of the podium at Magny-Cours. I spoke to him about that win and about possible prospects in Formula One in the future. Giorgio, very good to see you back on top of the podium at the Manicourt French Grand Prix 3000 race. Talk us through that race a little bit. A lot of pressure, of course, from Wertheim, but no mistakes from you.
Yeah, we did kind of good job there. I see him during the race, the first 15-20 lap, it was very close. The gap was just 1 second, 9-10, 1 second, was just that. And on the end, I think he lose a little bit more his rear tires, and he just go away a little bit to 310 every single lap.
It's a frustrating Formula 3000, very little time to react to things. You've got to take a gamble sometimes, and if the gamble doesn't pay off, basically the whole weekend is gone.
Yeah, for sure. If you don't are there all the time on the front to push very hard and maybe make a gamble, yeah, you lose the opportunity to be on the first, on the second road. It's very difficult to win race in Formula 3000.
And your possible Formula One aspirations, what are you thinking in terms of a test deal if you can put it together, or you're hoping maybe to get a race deal for 2004?
For me, it's perfect also to be 1 year with test driver, because like this you make more experience. You do more experience with the car, because now the car is quite difficult to understand everything. We talk about electronic, traction control, all these things. And 1 year like this with test driver, for me, make me much more with experience, and maybe for the 2005 a racing.
Magny-Cours was not an easy weekend for Townsend Bell. Didn't qualify particularly well on a circuit that, of course, nobody could test on, nobody knew. At Silverstone, a somewhat better prospect for Townsend. I spoke to him about that French race and about how he might go here in England.
It was a track that I hadn't seen until Thursday. Things were going reasonably well in practice. We were quick, relatively speaking, straight off, but then in qualifying, just a bit off everywhere. No one particular place, and ended up 7 or 8 tenths off pole or something, and we were back in 11th. And it's just tough with half an hour of practice to get it all right. It's a tall order. Again, I've never raced here. I did have a chance to drive around in this little Caterham, which is like a sort of like a Lotus Super 7. Scary little thing. You can stick your hand out the side and touch the ground over the door. So I did a few laps, which gets you familiar. It's about like playing the video game, but to go around in 3000 car, it'll be a lot different. And if it's wet, that'll make it a little tricky. But we've been quick in the wet so far.
Will Langhorne's been getting better with every race, and here at Silverstone, he has a new teammate with which to compare himself. That's the 1999 British Formula 3 champion, Mark Hines. Very quick, so it'll be interesting to see how Will gets on. New teammate for you this weekend.
Yeah, I turned up this weekend and saw Mark Hines is going to be with us this weekend, and if there's a guy that's done really well at Silverstone and knows the circuit really well, it would be Mark. So I'm excited to work with him, and I've got a little bit of mileage in the car. He's got some mileage at the circuit, so I think it'll be a good scenario, and I know I'll be able to learn a lot from him.
Because until now, and somewhat to your credit, you've actually been considerably quicker than your teammate, haven't you? Which in a way, I guess, isn't really helping as much as it could, having somebody quick in the car.
Yeah, it's your teammate's your best friend and your worst enemy. It's been an ideal situation in that you want to try and be quicker than your teammate, but in another sense, I hadn't been able to learn as much as I want to and progress as much as I want to. So, working hard with the team, the engineering staff here is fantastic and doing what we can. But I know this weekend is going to be a huge opportunity for us to step up even further with Mark in terms of a very aggressive, good driver as a teammate.
Kind of tough for Will Langhorne coming in late in the season, joining a team that isn't especially competitive and trying to make a name for himself at the same time.
Boy, it doesn't seem to be very competitive at all. They're at the back of the grid again today, but Will Langhorne putting a very brave face and everything there, I thought.
Doing the best he can. Time now to take a quick break. When we come back, Peter Windsor is going to give us the inside scoop on why David Sears has shut down the Den Blanc of V team. If you haven't heard, they're gone. See what the drivers are doing now, so stick around. Welcome back to the pre-race show for the British round of the F3000 Championship. There's Bjorn Verdheim getting ready to go racing. This weekend, unfortunately, marks the end of the Den Blanc AV team, one of the two teams owned by David Sears. Peter Windsor caught up with Sears to discuss what went wrong and the state of his Supernova team. Peter?
Silverstone marked a turning point for David Sears. No Denblar Arvis team here, the other team that he's run so successfully over the years. I spoke to David to ask him what was going on, and also to Phil Giebler, who sadly is without a drive at the moment.
It's very simple. I mean, we had two American drivers, one in each team, one in Supernova, Derek Hill and Phil Giebler in the DBA team, and Phil's deal was a race-to-race one anyway, and unfortunately he hasn't come up with the money, and Derek is well short of his mark as well, so I mean, no pay, no play, I'm afraid. You know, if there's no sponsorship there, we can't operate. So therefore we've moved Nicholas Chiesa into Supernova to put one team out there and put the other one on ice.
It's pretty unfortunate. We're going pretty well, but we're on a race-by-race basis, and you know, I was pretty happy to get in a few races and hopeful that something was going to come together and we'd get the rest of the season in, but as it stands now, we're just going to really concentrate on next year, and if we get in a few races at the end of this year, I'd be really happy. But you know, it's just really tough right now.
Let's put it this way: when you enter into contracts with people and they sign and say that they've got enough sponsorship money to carry the season, then you obviously presume they have, and then you know, if they haven't, then they let you down. So you've got to try and survive. But quite honestly, I don't think it's just Formula 3000. I think it's motorsport across the board at the moment is struggling a lot on sponsorship.
I remember talking with Derek at the last race. There you see Townsend Bell, who I just talked with him this morning to say, you do have funding to go the rest of the year, don't you? And he said, yeah, but unfortunately Derek at the last race was saying, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. I'm trying to scare up the money, and obviously he couldn't make it happen.
No, and it's very hard to scare up money, and of course you want to be doing well before you can get interest to get sponsorship, and of course if you don't get the money you can't do well, and the whole thing is a nasty spiral.
It is, and you've got to remember as well that although the drivers may say, yeah, I've got the sponsorship sorted out, there are so many links down the chain as well that so one of their sponsors could drop out and say, well, I did have the money for you, now I haven't got the money for you. It ain't easy.
It happened on more than a few occasions in racing. There's Ricardo Sperafico standing at the back of his car discussing strategy with his team. We're going to take a brief break while they have their discussions. And in fact, when we come back, it's going to be time to meet yet another driver. So that's the guy we'll meet, because Peter talked with Ricardo Sperafico about his racing family. Stick around. Welcome back to Speed's live coverage of the Formula 3000 Championship as they work on Giorgio Pantano's car. 2003 is marking Ricardo Sperafico's third year in F3000. In fact, he's raced in Formula 3000 alongside both of his brothers. So Peter Windsor caught up with Ricardo to talk about his family and his future.
Well, Silverstone may be a benchmark race for David Sears, losing one of the teams as he has, or putting it on ice, as he says. But for one team on the way up certainly is Paolo Coloni. And here at Coloni Motorsport, Ricardo Sperafico looking very, very strong. I spoke to him about Silverstone, about his brother, about his cousin, about the Sperafico family and where those genes come from. Well, an amazing racing family. You also got a cousin, I think, racing in the United States. How did this all come about? Where does this all come from? What side of the family the genes come from?
Well, the first driver becomes my father, you know, when 71, and a little bit early as well. And after, just need work and didn't have time. And when you grow up, you just, all right, I'm gonna put you, because we didn't know when he put us to race go-kart, but we always having fun together when he go to the races, and I think it's quite good.
Well, how's your brother? How good is your brother? And tell us about the age difference between you and your brother.
Well, the age is no difference. We are twins now, so.
Yeah, but who came out first?
Well, I came out first, but it's quite strange because some years, like 1 year, he's finished better than me. He have more victories. 1 year, I finished better. So we changed a lot. At the last few years, I get a better team, maybe the quality of the car, but it's look the same.
Do you ever look at Michael and Ralph and think, wow, there's two brothers racing very closely together, and wonder what it would be like if you're racing right at the top level with your brother, and how it would be for you two?
Definitely. We think about that, because it's going to be amazing to have already two brothers, but have two twins. It's make more difference. But it's quite difficult for us because we came from Brazil. We try hard to arrive in Formula 1, but well, the family have racing on the blood.
Imagine that. You know, you've got two brothers competing for the World Championship with the Schumacher brothers. Imagine if it was twin brothers competing for a World Championship.
Absolutely. And talking of twins, they'll be 24 next Wednesday. So they'll just get up to the average age of the grid here today. And Will Langhorne at 30 is the oldest driver out there.
And Alex Sperafico was running in Champ Cars 2 weeks ago or last week. So the brothers are out there racing. Very impressive group, all things considered.
Well, Brazilian's a pretty racy country. There's no doubt about it. And we've seen a lot of Brazilian world champions. That's somebody we should know, I'm sure. Who was it, Steve? With my usual throw you under the bus question.
Now that guy right there we need to talk about. That's Michael Cohane. He is the new kid on the block. He's the Irish driver who is starting his first Formula 3000 race running with the Astromega team. And obviously he's new to F3000, but he's got a little bit of experience in F3, so he knows his way around the track at the very least. And hopefully he's about to discover that racing is racing. Running for Astromega, we'll be right back with more from F3000 here at Silverstone right after this. Welcome back to Formula 3000 on Speed. Right now it is time to check out the track map with David Hobbs. Take us around Silverstone.
Well, at 3.2 miles, it's a long circuit. It's also high speed, 119 miles an hour for these guys. 17 turns, and like British houses, unlike American houses, American racetracks, all the corners have got names, not numbers. They've all got numbers there, so we can read them. But not much opportunity for overtaking. Stowe corner, very fast corner. Some very fast high-speed sections here. Overtake into maybe Copse and into the Abbey chicane there.
That's what the track looks like from up above, but of course very different down below. There's Christian Horner, team owner for the Arden team. His man Bjorn Verdheim is up front, and his other man, Townsend Bell, is the first American who really stands a chance at making a mark in Formula 3000. Townsend Bell's goal basically is to try to get used to everything this year. He seems suiting up right behind Christian. His goal is to make his get used to the circuits, learn what he can, and then next year try to come back and really make a mark on it.
It's Giorgio Pantano's car we're looking at there. Everybody looks very calm and controlled on the grid at the moment. There's no last-minute panics going off. I was just watching the mechanics adjusting the ride height earlier on and just securing the spring platforms to make sure that they don't vibrate loose as the cars go around the track. But no panics, all very calm, which is just the way the teams like it.
Well, you can't make a lot of changes in these cars. You know, basically, it's a spec series as a result. If you haven't got them sorted out by now, it'd be a little bit late. We're going to take a brief break. We'll come back in just a moment. The cars should be rolling off. Welcome back. Just moments away from the start of this year's F3000 race here at Silverstone. Before we get to the start of this race, let's take a look back at last year's British race. At the start, Tomas Engel led from the pole with Sebastian Bourdais. Watch this, going to slide right into second. Both Petrobras Junior car made good starts with Ricardo Sperafico taking third and Antonio Pizzonia, look at that, moving into fourth.
That was a slick move. That second lap here, Giorgio Pantano in the Coloni car passes Antonio Pizzonia for fourth place. And a good pass here. It's a battle for 14th. He's up. Alec Mule in the Minardi, precious Bob Ewan in the Astromega. Meanwhile, Diego Monteiro in the Supernova looks on from mistakes from either driver.
And then on lap 18, Rodrigo Sperafico, watch this coming up. He's in the Durango. He makes a move on Mario Haberfeld in the other Astromega. That was for 9th. That was going into Vale. And then, one lap later, Ricardo Mauricio pressures Mario Haberfeld. But when Maurizio swings wide to the inside, ooh, they clip.
Slight error of judgment there.
Exactly. Tearing off the wing, sending both drivers into the gravel trap. Haberfeld got through the gravel, but a damaged suspension put an end to his day.
At the end, Tomas Engel wins by over 14 seconds from Sebastian Bourdais. Sebastian Bourdais, who we've seen a lot of this year on speed and kart racing, doing very well too.
Engel standing up, victorious, thinking he's well on his way to winning an F3000 championship. Unfortunately, as the circumstances went, he got disqualified from one of his results, and he did not get the championship. He ended up finishing second. Giorgio Pantano, who has won twice this year, the only double winner, He won in Spain. He won the last race in France. Now the question is, can he win at the British Grand Prix? He sees old Baumgartner getting ready to go racing. We're going to take another brief break. We'll come back with more from Silverstone right after this. Welcome back to Speed Channel's live coverage of the Formula 3000 Championship. It is just about time for the cars to roll off the grid. Make sure everybody's working.
Vumba, 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 vumba. Do they in fact all roll off?
This is not the start of the race, just their opportunity to go out and check the track one last time. And it looks like everybody's off safely and away. As a result, we're going to take a moment and tell you how they're lining up with today's starting grid. On the front row, Bjorn Verdheim, the 4th pole for him this year. The points leader beside him, though, Giorgio Pantano, who won the last race, has 2 victories this season.
On row 2, Riccardo Sperafico in the Coloni car, the winner in Austria, and alongside him, Antonio Luzzi, one of the Red Bull cars. Just 1 point separates these two guys in the championship at the moment, 4th and 5th.
Row number 3 could be very interesting. Patrick Friesacher and Townsend Bell. Remember Nürburgring? These two got into it and then had a little chat on the pit wall. What will happen today?
Now, in 7th spot, Enrico Toccacello, winner of the European GP round, had a horrible race in France just a couple of weeks ago. Next to him is Jaroslav Yanis, who was just 20 last week in the ISR Cheroux car.
Row number 5, Tony Schmidt, who finished 5th in France. That was his best finish yet. Beside him, Yannick Schroeder, who has scored points in 5 out of the 6 races so far.
On row 6, Nicolas Geyser, surprise winner in Monaco, now driving the Supernova car, previously driven by Derek Hill. And next to him is Zolt Baumgartner in the 2nd Coloni car.
Row number 7, Michael Cohane, his very first race, his debut. He's from Ireland. He's 23 years old. Beside him, Rafael Jean-Maria.
And in the final row, the BCN cars, Will Langhorne and his new teammate, British driver Mark Hines, who was the British Formula 3 champion in '99, won the Formula 3 race here in front of all the Grand Prix guys that year, has since obviously gone into complete non-entity status. I don't quite understand what happened to Mark Hines, because he actually beat Jenson Button that year in the Formula 3 Championship, and look at Jenson Button today.
All those would have beens, could have been. Let's talk about the weather. There was talk about the possibility of some thunder showers this afternoon. Now, during Formula 1 qualifying, it was pretty sunny out. Now I don't see an awful lot of shadows out there, although it doesn't look too bad. And when you look off into the distance, you see a lot of blue skies and just a few white puffy clouds.
It looks very nice, all those umbrellas up there to keep the searing English heat off the necks and backs of those poor little English flowers. English ladies, of course, like to have a peaches and cream complexion. They don't want the sun spoiling it.
That's because they use the umbrellas against that searing English sun.
Oh, look at it. See all that heat aid, eh? That's heat aid. What do you call that? Yeah. Serious heat. Silverstone is his mate. Everybody's staying to the right of the screen, left of the track to keep off the dirty side. All the rolled-up rubbers as they come out of Woodcote there, trying to keep their tyres clean to make a good start.
And as we've seen, it is very difficult to pass this year in F3000, so the start is so critical. Bjorn Verdheim starting from the pole on the inside of the track, although offline, is Giorgio Pantano, and he's got to be trying to figure out how to make a move.
In the old days, of course, when they had side-by-side grid, I don't hold this stagger grid. Pole position at Silverstone was always on the inside because you were on the inside then coming up to Copse.
Back when men were men.
That's right.
They like the way the grid's lined up. Lights go on. Look at Sperafico, just kind of nosed out just a little bit. Let's see what they do.
Yeah, he's cutting across in front of the car of Friesacher. Luzzi, ooh. But yes. Luzzi got through, and right behind him is Friesacher. So now, Sperafico drops back. Look at this, Pantano. Pantano
right
having to go around Verdheim.
All right, down guys. Here we go.
So down into Maggots and through the Beckett's complex.
Verdheim just pulling away a little bit, but Pantano was all over him there going into that complex. Wants to get tucked under the wing as they go down towards Stowe.
And there's Townsend Bell under attack from behind. Toccacello got by for 6th, and Jaroslav Yanis is now looking to see if he can't make a move against Townsend Bell. Up front, meanwhile, Bjorn Verdheim with Giorgio Pantano behind.
Tony Schmidt and Nicolas Chiesa side by side as they went through Stowe, down through Vale and up to Club.
Well, Giorgio Pantano looked like he was about to make a move on Bjorn Verdheim, but he couldn't make it work, and now Bjorn is just starting to edge out a little bit.
He is a little bit, yeah. As the tyres get up to heat, the Avon tyres, they're a standard tyre for everybody, control tyre. They had to change a couple of races ago because they were wearing the rears out. A lot of fierce battling going on at the back.
It looked to me as Verdheim stood on the grid just prior to the start that he had 1 or 2 marbles on the front of the front tyres. The rears he'd managed to scrub clean by spinning the wheels, but Pantano, great move at the start, but didn't manage to get past Verdheim on that lead down into Copse.
He's not giving up right there.
Well, that's the entire field going by. Remember, don't have as many cars as we have had because the Denbla AV team is history, so we've lost a couple of cars in this race.
Well, those new rear tyres you were talking about, David, that were introduced recently did work. I don't think we had anywhere near the tyre degradation that they experienced in the first few races of the season, so these new tyres have been a success. But again, expect them to start to go off. This is a 30-lap race around Silverstone circuit. Watch for those tyres starting to go off at about lap 20.
Yep, that's Verdheim and Pantano, then Liuzzi, Sperafico, and then there's Townsend Bell going through in 8th spot. Sperafico working to get back around that car in front of him, of Liuzzi.
Yeah, Sperafico once again on the grid had cocked his car off to the side in hopes of getting a little bit of an advantage, and it didn't quite work out.
Well, he cut across in front of Liuzzi, but Liuzzi soon dusted him off going to Copse anyway. So now Sperafico's got his work cut out to try and get around him.
And these cars have no launch control, they have no traction control, so it's simply what you do in terms of applying the power, and I think he had a little too much wheel spin when he was coming off the line.
Yeah.
Verdheim, Pantano, Liuzzi, Sperafico, Friesacker. Don't forget, Friesacker broke his arm in Spain, sort of making a pretty good recovery, really. Then it's Toccacello, and behind Toccacello is Townsend Bell, who got passed by Toccacello on that first lap.
Just 2 laps into this race, and already Pantano and Verdheim open up a little bit of a gap to the rest of the field.
And that's Riccardo Sperafico, who's taking a look at the back of Liuzzi. Sperafico, who is going to turn 24 on Wednesday.
Along with his twin brother and his cousin's brother in there somewhere. Amazing racing family.
And Riccardo gets to turn 24 first. Remember, he was first out, as he said before the race started. You see the first 2 drivers
pulling away a bit now from Liuzzi and Sperafico. So Sperafico probably a bit anxious to get around Liuzzi. He was probably thinking he's holding him up just a little bit. Sperafico's qualifying time, mind you, the qualifying times in this formula are desperately close. Sperafico was quicker than Liuzzi by like 0.03 of a second.
And in this series, I think you have to say, Steve, qualifying is critical.
Oh, absolutely it is. And they have very little qualifying and practice time to get familiar with the track as well. But you want to take care of those tyres. Remember, there's no scheduled pit stops in this race as well, no refueling. But you want to try and save a set of tyres so you've got new tyres for the race if possible. But that, by doing so, it cuts down again on that practice time. And they only have 30 minutes of free practice on the Friday. Qualifying itself is only 40 minutes.
And of course, with a controlled engine, controlled tyres and a controlled chassis, you can make some adjustments. It's incredibly hard to get anywhere that you can make any ground up. Sperafico spinning the tyres going across in front of Liuzzi, but it didn't seem to faze Liuzzi a bit.
Just wasn't enough of an advantage. Yeah, he squeezed him all the way over when you see it from that angle.
But Liuzzi came back. And it jolly nearly let, with Sperafico doing all that swerving around, jolly nearly let Friesacker through as well.
Well, the good news is everybody got away safely and made through the first turn safely. John Maria was trying to work his way up to the middle of the field.
So, 27 laps remaining. There's the graphic on the screen, and we're thinking about what can you do to these cars. Well, they're all identical chassis, engine, suspension, tyres. What do you do to make an advantage with the engineering on the car? Really, On a track like Silverstone, it all comes down to how much wing dare you trim off the car.
Yeah,
Really, Silverstone's a track split into two. The first half from Copse right down through Stone, really into Club, is very fast. And then you get the section where you need that downforce through Abbey, Farm, Priory and Brooklands, Luffield. What do? Take the downforce off the car to maximise the speed down the hanger straight, and then you're going to be compromised around this section right here. Well, let's have a look. Keep your eye on the rear wings.
The thing is to try and get the speed up to overtake, and of course Silverstone has got the sticky fingerprints of the FIA all over it these days, and of course to slow it all down, they've jammed in all these tight corners, none of which have any sort of approach coming to them where you can make a serious overtaking attempt. So overtaking at Silverstone is extremely difficult. That looks like Christian Horner.
Well, up front, it is Bjorn Verdheim who's taken away. Giorgio Pantano still in second. We're going to take a brief break. We'll come back with more from Silverstone and F3000 right after this.
Speed Channel's coverage of the Formula 3000 Championship is brought to you by Porsche for the pure sport of driving, and by Michelin, because so much is riding on your tires.
Back at Silverstone, the Formula 3000 event, and Riccardo Sperafico is the meat in a Red Bull sandwich. He's got Tonio Liuzzi ahead of him, Patrick Friesacher behind. Liuzzi just a moment ago locked it up ever so slightly going through one of the turns, but not enough that Sperafico was able to take advantage. But Sperafico's got to be careful because he tries too much on trying to get away from Liuzzi. Friesacher will come blowing by.
You were asking me where they're going to pass here, Steve, and my answer to that is I have no idea.
It is very difficult.
Obviously, with the intense pressure here, that's how you pass somebody, when they make a bit of a mistake.
And we've got oh no, this is a replay.
Yeah,
I thought it was real-time speed.
I thought it was real-time pulling up.
Absolutely locking up that left front, yeah. And I guess you're right, David. You have to get right on the chuff of somebody and try and force them to have that mistake. You
Exactly.
just force them to go a little bit too deep, to be concentrating too much on the rear view mirrors as opposed to what's happening at the track in front and the braking point, and just try and capitalize on any slight error.
Bjorn Verdheim now put a bit of a gap between himself and Giorgio Pantano, so it looks like Verdheim could be another two-time winner this year. He should be a three-time winner because he really won the Monte Carlo Grand Prix. Sperafico now right under the wing of Liuzzi.
Yeah, Liuzzi had been pulling away, and I think as a result of that problem, it enabled Riccardo to get right up close, and Riccardo is now just trying to figure out if he can pressure another mistake. Meanwhile, Friesacher behind is being pressured by Enrico Teccacello.
And behind Toccacello and dropping back there is Townsend Bell. Then Jaroslav Yanis, the youngest driver in the field, and Tony Schmidt following him. Jaroslav Yanis running in 8th spot, which is exactly where he qualified. Schmidt in 9th spot where he qualified. So very, very difficult to make up any ground because these cars are so evenly matched, as obviously are the drivers. And it's just a case of one of them desperately hoping that the other one's going to make a mistake.
And there you see the gap. So you see the leader, Bjorn Verdheim, at the top of the screen, then the Durango blue car of Giorgio Pantano, and then that's the gap back to this car, which belongs to Tonio Liuzzi. There's the leader. There's Pantano.
Look at that, 2.25 seconds back to Pantano. And at least another 2.25 back to Vincent Luisi, which is actually, it's 5 seconds for Verdheim back to Liuzzi now in 3rd spot.
It's going to be interesting as this race unfolds to see how these guys will be able to take care of their tyres. We know Giorgio Pantano is pretty good with his racecraft at preserving those tyres. And maybe in the closing stage of the race, once these Avon control tyres start to go off a little bit, maybe that'll be the time to make the move.
I was talking with Townsend Bell about this new tire that Avon's put out, and he was saying it's not that it's so much better, it's just that it's more consistent now. In other words, they were having a little bit of a control problem with each set of tires not always being equal, so you never quite knew what you were going to get on the car. He says it's not so much that the tires are designed to last better throughout the race, although they'll do that, but more importantly, you know pretty much what each set is going to do, because that's what's so difficult. If you get a set on that isn't equal to the one you raced on last time.
Well, it's interesting to know that Avon have got that problem, Rick, because it's exactly the same problems what Michelin in their Formula One project have been coming up with the same problem. Well, consistency between not so much batch to batch from race to race, but set to set.
Well, anytime you have a tyre that's basically handmade, I mean, you do get that situation. I remember at Indianapolis one year, I just couldn't get out of my own way. We put a new set of tyres on, didn't touch anything else, and jumped about 4 miles an hour. I mean, it made a huge difference, which was particularly fortunate as it was bump day. And
there you see the Red Bull car in the front. Well, now we're back up front with Giorgio Pantano up front. I was going to point out the fact there you see that's Liuzzi, then Sperafico, and then watch behind Friesacher there, right there. That car is Enrico Tuccicello.
Trying to get around Friesacher, which no doubt Townsend Bell is looking at with great interest.
Is this a replay of Liuzzi?
Yeah, just trying to pound the curb a little bit.
Yeah. I think maybe the camera is kind of keen to show the flames licking out the back of the exhaust.
Gia Maria having a look there. Yeah, going in. This.
Yeah, he goes by Zolt Baumgartner.
Nice pass.
But can he hold on to it? Let's see. Yep, he does.
I don't know what Zolt did wrong then. He just suddenly sort of gave up.
Overpowered by superior driving skill.
Pantano. Is it my imagination? No, it is my imagination. I thought he was a little bit closer to Verdheim, but unfortunately he's not.
Well, as Bjorn Verdheim continues to check out and we wait for this battle to heat up, we're going to take a brief break. We'll come back with more from Silverstone and Formula 3000 in a moment. Welcome back to Silverstone, Formula 3000 event here. Bjorn Verdheim, there you see in the red car, checking out. Giorgio Pantano right behind him, as close as he can get. And while we were away, a little unfortunate incident with one of the Americans, Will Langhorne.
Will Langhorne desperately trying to hang on to 15th spot. Unfortunately, went into the gravel and
he was trying to go
back on.
Trying to go by Zolt Baumgartner, took a look to the inside, and unfortunately, it did not turn out the best.
Zolt must be having trouble in the second Coloni car.
Don't forget to join us tomorrow at 7:30 in the morning Eastern Time for live coverage of the British Grand Prix. As always, we'll start things off with the Acura pre-race show. And you know, this week, Peter Windsor will chat with the drivers and get their opinions on the Silverstone circuit and its very tentative future on the Formula One calendar. Once again, that all starts tomorrow at 7:30 in the morning Eastern Time, 4:30 for all you West Coast folks. I feel your pain. That is only on Speed. Imagine all those poor West Coast folks got to get up in their pajamas. Their spouses wondering, what the heck are you doing? Liuzzi keeps locking up, and Sperafico is trying to...
Well, I think that was Sperafico locked up then, I think, going into that veil.
Sperafico is just desperate for Liuzzi to make some kind of a mistake because he doesn't seem to be able to gain on him otherwise.
Doesn't seem to be cooperating at all, does he? It's a 12 car of Michael Cohane being pressed hard by Gia Maria. Gia Maria, the young aspiring lawyer stroke race driver, not quite sure what he wants to be, but wants to be one or the other.
It's Giorgio Pantano.
Yeah.
You know, I have to say, overall, I'm very impressed with Pantano this year, even though right now he's not challenging for the lead. The fact that he's got 2 victories, you have to understand the team that he came into. This was not, I mean, you know, this team had been around since 1993, but in all the years before this one, they had only won 2 races. They won 1 last year. Giorgio's actually, I kind of think, kind of lifted this team to a degree.
I tell you what, Giorgio Pantano last year impressed me a lot last year. He did more overtaking than anybody. He always seemed to get down in the field somehow, either started off down there or spun down there, and then always made a dramatic climb back to the field. And as we've seen today, it's very hard for anybody to overtake anybody in this. But he was in a Coloni car last year, and he really was, he did a lot of overtaking last year.
And Pantano was expected to be going to kart this year, and as a result, he didn't have one of the top teams lined up to come back in Formula 3000. When the kart ride fell through, he had to scramble to come up with F3000, came to Durango, and as I said, Durango has done better as a result of its association with Giorgio Pantano. Michael Cohane, you see, in the back behind, well, it's Jean Maria. Michael Cohane has gotten past Jean Maria. Jean Maria's in the other Durango car. Michael Cohane, the first ever driver from the Republic of Ireland to ever compete in F3000.
He's having a bit of a lock up there too.
Oh, Jean Maria trying to take a look, see if he can make it work.
Now.
Out of club, is he going to be able to get him going to Abbey? He's going to have a go, but Cohane's trying to... Whoa!
Oh, no!
Too much bravery, not enough grip.
Oh, my God, he put the brakes on in the gravel trap. What a mistake. He should have let it back out. He's going to be stuck now.
Rafael Jean-Maria, the aspiring lawyer.
If ever you get in the gravel, make sure the thing keeps on moving.
Yep.
Because once it stops, you're done.
It's the big momentum. Let's take another look at what happened.
Cohane really puts the block on big time, but he on the inside, but he's too late. He tries to snap on him there, but of course Gianmaria locks up that left front trying to turn in, the old weight transfer, gets in the gravel, and look, he's almost the edge of the gravel, and he puts the brakes on.
Yeah, you can't do that, as you say.
Well, the bad news for this team, the Durango team, is that Rafael Jean-Maria is out of the race. The good news is their other driver is Giorgio Pantano, who is still running around in second place. Jean-Maria may have to fall back on that law degree after all.
Yeah, disappointing for him there.
And there's Giorgio Pantano.
Giorgio Pantano locking up again. Here's the battle for third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. Townend Bell actually losing out a bit of ground to these guys. He certainly doesn't need to do that.
But the good news is that Jaroslav Yanis, who was behind Townsend Bell, is dropping back. Townsend working hard to stay up with this group, but easily ahead of the next group back.
I just said a few minutes ago how Pantano's so good at taking care of those tyres, but whether or not he's got some problem with the brake bias, he's been locking up consistently, really, pretty much from the go-get.
Yeah, he's locked them up a lot. And of course, you can change the brake bias on these, I believe.
Yeah, they've got a cable system exactly the same as the Formula One cars, the big brothers, where you can change the bias front to rear. You're not allowed to do it side to side, but you can adjust it front to rear across the chassis.
Let's take another look at it.
You see Giorgio, who's pretty much on his own now. Ooh, locked up that big time. That'll put a big
There was no need for that, David, as far as I know. There's no pressure from anybody there, was it?
Well, it's absolutely unforgivable. Typical mechanic, there's no need for that.
Must be something wrong with the chassis.
What if I said that every time I found a spanner floating around on the floor underneath my feet?
Wow.
No.
I'm not going there.
Sperafico. As you said earlier on, Rick, the meat in the Red Bull sandwich there looked like he was making a bit of ground on Liuzzi, but seems to lose out somewhere. Here they come.
There you see third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and Townsend Bell on the back there in seventh.
Toccacello right under the wing now of Friesacker there, just taking off one of his tear-off strips, hoping it'll go into Toccacello's air intake.
And Friesacker so far this season only has 1 points finished. That was in the very first race when he finished second. Didn't finish the second race. Then he was out as a result of breaking his arm. Missed 2 races. Had the incident with Townsend Bell at the Nürburgring. And then at the last race, he had a little incident that knocked him back. He ended up finishing 11th. But as a result, he only has a single points-paying finish. So, yes, he wants to get a hold of Ricardo Sperafico in front. But more importantly, he needs to get some points when he finishes this race. We're going to take a brief break. We'll come back with more from Silverstone. Welcome back to Silverstone. You see the red car. Ricardo Sperafico still sitting there waiting for Tonio Liuzzi to make a mistake. That's Nicholas Chiesa. You'll notice he's in a yellow car this week. That's because his old team, the Denbla V team, no longer exists, so he's now moved over and taken the car that was being used by Derek Hill.
And Derek Hill is certainly temporarily, at least, out of the series. He only had 4 points. Had a bit of a lackluster run, I'm afraid, but the whole Jordan Jr. team, or the Supernova team, has had a bit of a strange season. Toccacello, who we're seeing here running in 5th spot, had that great win in the European race at the Nürburgring last week. He qualified terribly and ran terribly, so they're a bit up and down, there's no doubt about it. I'll tell you what, Sperafico getting a bit desperate here because Liuzzi, I think, is probably just marginally holding him up, which means that not only is he trying to get around Liuzzi, but he's got his mirrors absolutely full of Liuzzi's teammate, Friesacker.
Well, it goes back to, you can't be too brave because you make a little tiny mistake and he'll have Friesacker all over him.
Well, we saw what happened to Gianmaria when he tried to get around the outside of Cohane. There we see our race leader. Now it's completely uncalled for, locking up, don't you think?
Well, let's get to the bottom of this, David. We said if you had £1 for every time you got a spanner in your car, you'd have, what, £2? Well, that's not bad for a series, a career that
as long
spans
as
several
yours.
decades, is it?
Yeah, but did it cost you any victories? That's the question.
Lots.
Because he was haunted by the memory of those 2 wrenches.
Well, I never knew when one was going to pop up. That was all. So it makes you a bit sort of discombobulated. Pantano dropping back a long way now, over 5 seconds. Look at this big gap from Pantano back to Liuzzi, 10 seconds. With only 3 rounds left after this, a win here for Verdheim is going to be pretty disastrous for anybody hoping to snatch the championship.
Yeah, Verdheim.
Snatching victory from the jaws of defeat are not going to happen here if Verdheim should win this race.
He's only got 1 race that he didn't get points in. That was the European Grand Prix when he finished 13th, had that incident in the first part of the race. Other than that, he won the first race and has finished 2nd in every other race since then.
And of course, he should have won Monte Carlo, but slowed down to congratulate the team. Well, unfortunately, hadn't got to the start-finish line.
One of the great bonehead racing moves of our time.
There's Nicholas Chiesa.
And Nicholas Chiesa,
who of course,
in
was
the
the
yellow
surprise
car.
winner of that race in the Den Blauer-Wies team. And the Den Blauer-Wies team, as we've already said, has gone. So Nicholas Chiesa moved into Derek Hill's car.
Well, Derek Hill has to feel at least a little better, because seeing that Nicholas Chiesa didn't jump in the car and scorch things.
Yeah, right. It would have been a bit of a blow if he'd gone and won it, wouldn't it? He's running right about where Derek Hill would have won in the car.
In fact, Nicholas Chiesa qualified 11th, and that's exactly where he's running around. And although he is getting racy here,
he's trying to get past Yannick Schroeder. I think he probably will, as long as he doesn't make a mistake like Gia Maria made. Gia Maria Rafael. Well,
there he goes.
But
can he hold on?
Can he hold it?
No.
Yes.
Because he's just lucky for him. He had the inside line for the next corner, right-hander. Now, is he going to be able to pull away from Schroeder?
That was a great move by Nicholas Chiesa. Set him up, went inside, and he was able to hold on. And that's the tough part. He's moved from 11th up into 10th and moved Yannick Schroeder back a spot.
Let's have another look at it, David.
Comes right down, gets tucked under the wing. Woo, goes down the inside. Boy, oh boy, that was close. That was at Priory. But of course, he lost momentum and then went wide. Here you see it again. I mean, there was no gap there at all when you look at it from that high shot.
And I give a little credit to Yannick Schroeder. I mean, it was heads-up racing on his part. It could have been major heartache.
He could have pushed him over there, but, you know, you both lose on that. Here you see. I mean, that was a bit of a bold move there by Nicholas Chiesa. But there again, as we've already said, there is nowhere to overtake here. So when you see even the glimmer of an opportunity, you take it.
You've got to go for it.
And of course, the problem with those glimmers of opportunity is they also lead to loss of wheels and other substantial parts of the car, which is sometimes essential to continue the race.
Opportunity can provide heartbreak if you're not careful. We're going to take a break as we see the cars slide through the turns. Bjorn Verdheim is leading up front. This is the battle in the back. We'll be right back. Back in Britain, where they are racing Formula 3000 style at Silverstone. And Bjorn Verdheim pretty much checked out. There is the leader car, and it's quite a long ways back, several seconds back to Giorgio Pantano. All right, here's the question, though. When you win this way, he's done a great job this year, but he hasn't been able to do a lot of passing. You're dominating a series that's down on car count. What is this saying to the Formula One guys? They look and saying, "Oh, you dominated the series. We're going to pick you up," or "Yeah, but have you really accomplished anything? We didn't see you pass
the other
anybody."
thing too, they're going to say about Bjorn Verdheim, he's been in the series. This is his 3rd year in the series. So the other thing they're going to be saying, well, he should be winning by now. It's actually his 2nd year, but still and all, he's had a lot of experience in this championship. The Arden Racing Team, of course, the Forest of Arden was a huge area of forest in the centre of England, which is the name of the team. And of course, Christian Horner, the owner of the team, lives just a few miles away across that beautiful sylvan countryside that we're seeing from time to time. Right off to the left of the picture there at Leamington Spa is where Christian comes from. Went to school with my godson at Warwick, one of the oldest schools in England.
Yeah.
All just a few miles from here at Silverstone. So it'll be a great day for Christian Horner. His dad and mum will be here for absolutely sure. And a whole gang of friends and various hangers-on and Flotsam and Jepson will all come over from Leamington to try and get a free booze up on Christian Horner. after the race.
In fact, Townsend Bell
will
is
no doubt be very successful at achieving that aim.
Townsend Bell is living over there as well this year. We were talking with him about living not far from the team because he wanted to be able to make sure he was close by and have the whole experience.
Yeah, Townsend's got a place in Summertown right in the centre of Oxford, which is, I think for me,
also
probably
just
my
a few miles away.
favourite city in the world.
Beautiful city, Oxford.
Terrific pubs and other things as well, I understand.
Very historic.
There's a great school.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
It does?
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute.
Oh, that
we
is
got a problem. It looks like Michael Cohane. And that is unfortunate. Once again, our Irish driver out of the race. He had been running around back in 13th. Or was it Tony Schmidt? One of the two. Got to get confirmation because it's difficult to tell. Because there's no sponsorship on the side and no numbers. Number 11 is the car. It's Tony Schmidt. Well, Tony Schmidt is the guy out, so Michael Cohane is still in it.
Mark Hines is running in 13th spot, and Will Langhorne is in 14th spot now because they are last and second to last. I can only assume that the BCN cars are not very good because Mark Hines is definitely better than that.
Tony Schmidt only had 2 points paying finishes this year. He's got 7 points. He's only finished 3 races. And unfortunately, this is going to be another DNF. Up front, it's Bjorn Verdheim, who's still running away with it. Giorgio Pantano, then another 10 seconds back to Antonio Liuzzi. But I think it's time for Riccardo Sperafico to make a move. We'll find out in a moment. Welcome back. Formula 3000 live here on Speed. It's the race at Silverstone. Just 8 laps to go as Bjorn Verdheim continues to check out up front with Giorgio Pantano behind. But while we're away, a great move by Nicholas Chiesa.
His second great move of the race, and that takes him up to 8th, going by Jaroslav Yaris. Good move.
Yeah,
again, Yanis giving him a bit of room there, so he's had 2 great passes. It's a pity he's not near the front.
And as you said, the important thing is that moves him into 8th, and by virtue of the new point scoring system that we have in place this year, points go back to 8th, so he can pick up a single point. And while it's not make a huge difference, it's better than no points. And don't forget, American Road Racing lives on Speed. Later today, we'll have the Speed World Challenge races from Road Atlanta. Start things off with the touring cars at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. Immediately following them at 4 o'clock, we'll have coverage of the GT division. Once again, that's the touring cars at 3, GTs at 4, only here on Speed. Antonio Liuzzi, there you see him in 3rd. Riccardo Sperafico in 4th. And there we have the Giannis and Schrader both going at each other.
Yeah. And we're in that window now, Rick. About 7 laps remaining where these tyres are starting to go off. We're beginning to see the cars slide around a lot more than we were in the opening 10 to 15 laps. So anybody that's getting a little bit impatient, this could start to create 1 or 2 more overtaking possibilities by these mistakes being forced and drivers sliding their cars around.
Jaroslav Yanis there you see in front in 9th. His teammate Yannick Schroeder right behind.
He was right behind him just a few yards back. He seems to have pulled out a little bit in that last sector.
That's the back of the pack. You see Townsend Bell in the back of that pack that is 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. At one point it looked like the pack was kind of pulling away from him, but he's done a good job of hanging on. Just ahead of him, that yellow car is Enrico Tuccicello. And early on, it looked like Liuzzi was making a few mistakes, locking up the brakes, locking up the tires, but he hasn't done any in the last few laps, and it has not given Riccardo Sperafico a break.
No, they're terribly. Look at this. Schrader at that one stage gets right behind Yanis, his teammate.
But what's that teammate rule? Don't take each other out.
Yeah, you don't want to be doing that.
You can race, but do not. Exactly, you can race, but don't take each other out.
The mechanics think very lowly of you as a driver.
Well, it doesn't help anybody.
You'll find mini wrenches in your cockpit the next time.
Yaroslav Yanis, as we're seeing, look how he keeps being distracted again by looking where his teammate is, and that's exactly what Shroud is hoping for. Trying to force that little error. Just go a little bit too deep on one corner and I'll have you. This is Zolt Baumgartner in the Coloni.
He has definitely fallen off the pace in this afternoon's race. He qualified reasonably well, but, well, 12th, I suppose you can call that reasonably well, but he seems to be dropping back even more than his qualifying would signify.
Laps are winding down, and no one in this pack seems to be able to make a move on anybody. They're all lining up, making the same lines through the turns.
Townsend Bell looks like he might have designs on Toccocello's position, but he better get on with it. And of course, that's one of the dangers of doing something like Formula 3000. It's a very public arena, and you may be very good, and Townsend Bell may be a great driver, and is obviously as quick as anybody in that group in front of him. The only trouble is he's at the back of it, and he's not at the front of it, and the difference is horrendous, and it's a huge risk to take.
These two guys still at it, look here.
Ooh, Yaroslav Yanis in front, Yannick Schroeder behind. Yanis, who just turned 20 years old on July 8th, just last week. Slide through.
Never a lad. I got grandchildren that old. I don't know any of them, but
I think you got shoes that old.
Yeah, I definitely got clothes that old. Whoa, Pantano locking up that left front again.
Well, he's done it a lot, but it hasn't really hurt him.
He's got too much bias on the front. Look at him.
He's still a long way ahead of that battle for third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh that's behind him.
But unfortunately, he's a long way behind Bjorn Verdheim.
And we've seen Verdheim lock up once, but he hasn't made too many mistakes, and that's one of the reasons he's leading here at Silverstone. We'll be back. Welcome back. Rick DeBrule, David Hobbs, Steve Matchett. Formula 3000 at Silverstone. The battle, can you call it a battle? Between third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. Well, Townsend Bell's getting racy.
It's a battle in waiting, isn't it?
Waiting for the guy ahead to make a mistake.
One little mistake from someone.
And these two guys have been fun to watch. This is Yaroslav Yanis, who's in ninth, and his teammate Yannick Schroeder. And Schroeder is definitely working hard to get by, but Yanis just won't let it happen.
It just shows how intense this racing is when you got this sort of battle for ninth and 10th. Obviously seems relatively unimportant to us, but to them it's absolutely of paramount importance. Schroeder right behind his young teammate. Right behind him.
Of course, there are team bragging rights at stake here.
But from here on, that last sector of the track, Yaroslav Yanis seems to be able to pull out a little bit. Look at the gap now from Verdheim back to Pantano, nearly 8 seconds.
Yeah.
So the Arden team, no doubt, very ecstatic with just, 4 laps left, 3 laps left now.
Well, Giorgio Pantano, as you've said earlier on, David, he must have some sort of problem with the car, something to do with the brake bias, because locking up that front is just not something these guys should be doing. And the gap between these two guys doesn't really add up.
And all these guys who are battling basically for third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. So any one of these guys could have come third, but even that seems to have opened up just a little bit now. Just a moment ago, we saw Townsend Bell looking very racy with Toccocello. Looked like he might be seriously thinking about having a go, but I don't know that he is now.
He actually took a look to the inside at one point while we were away, but that was it. That was the total extent. Although he is closer. I mean, he was further back a few laps ago. He's definitely squeezed up and shortened the gap between Toccocello and himself. But as we've seen in this series, getting close and getting by are hugely different.
And of course, in any of these modern cars, you've absolutely got to keep going right to the absolute end, because you never know when the guy in front of you is going to have a problem or make a mistake. So you can never, ever give up. You can never, ever give up. That was Tony Schmidt we just saw standing there. 2 laps left.
And if things finish the way they are right now, obviously Bjorn Wertheim will add another 10 points to his lead, take himself out to 52, and it's going to stretch out the lead over Pantano by 2 more points. He's got a 16-point gap coming into this race, and he'll leave this race with an 18-point gap.
And with only 3 races left after here, Germany, Hungary, and Italy, he'd have to retire a couple of DNF a couple of times, and Pantano have to win 2 of them to even get that gap back.
Yeah, he could actually, if he gets a little luck and a little break next race, he could actually clinch the championship. The red car is Sperafico, that car that's in 4th. He was a winner this year. He won in Austria. He's got 2 third-place finishes as well. One at the very first race at Imola. He also finished 3rd 2 weeks ago in France. Unfortunately, he also has 2 races where he wasn't able to finish, and 1 race where he finished, but he was back in 14th, and that hurts him in the points.
Yeah, well, of course, when the cars are as consistent as this, and when Wertheim is consistent as he is, and the cars are prepared to the state that the Arden cars are, it's really, really tough to make any ground. You can't afford to give up anything. Because Wertheim and Sperafico have had that coming together at the European race a couple of 4 weeks ago. Of course, Wertheim finished out the points for the only time, but it also ruined Sperafico's run. Boy, he could have done with the points really badly. If he had a few points there, it would have made a big difference.
It is such a tight pack between 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, between 26 points down to 22 points, and then back behind them is Nicholas Chiesa with 19 points.
Well, there's Pantano. Look, he lost 3 seconds in that last lap, so
yeah, he must be having some kind of big time problem.
Well, I think he's probably just
backed off now.
Back right off to make sure he does finish. Doesn't want to make any silly mistakes now because he's. But then again, you can't back off too much because that's when you do make a silly mistake. But he's well ahead of the pack behind him and never going to make any ground on Wertheim. Wertheim's got time here to have quite a big spin, and Pantano still wouldn't catch him.
But he can't pull over and wave at his mechanics and stop again.
Not again.
Not like he did at Monaco.
Sure that
I don't think he will ever do that again. Oh, will he?
Bjorn Wertheim definitely putting his stamp on the series this year. He is qualified on the front row for every single race. He has finished 1st or 2nd in all the races but 1. And now it looks like he's about to get his 2nd victory of the season.
Yeah, 4 poles, 2 wins. And there goes Schroeder past Yannick. Is that right? Yes.
Yep.
Yes, it is.
Yannick Schroeder finally got by his teammate, Jaroslav Janis. It's the battle for 9th. Meanwhile, there is no battle up front at all. Bjorn Wertheim took the lead. He was on the pole, took the lead right off the bat. Slight battle as Giorgio Pantano at the very beginning looked like he was going to try and dice him through, but he didn't. And indeed, Bjorn Wertheim gets the victory at Silverstone.
And he does come over close to the pit wall, but he does not slow down.
Giorgio Pantano gets 2nd. Very important 8 points for him. And no change at all, it looks like, in this battle back here. Tonio Liuzzi is going to be 3rd. Riccardo Sperafico 4th. Patrick Friesacher 5th. Tocacello is 6th. And Townsend Bell, who had a few looks about moving up that one for a brief period of laps.
And of course, with Thomas Engel winning here last year, that is the 2nd Arden win in a row here at Silverstone. Great for Christian Horner. There you see Christian Horner. I'm sure his father is very close behind him in there. So great for the team. And of course, Townsend Bell coming in there in a points paying position as well in 7th spot.
Well done, Bjorn. Nicely done, flag to flag. Extended their lead in the team championship as well, of course.
Congratulations all around.
Yeah.
Little sigh of relief. Yes, both cars finish. No major repair work tonight.
Yeah, that'll be a relief for everyone, that's for sure.
Let's take one last look at that pass between Yannick Schroeder and his teammate, Jaroslav Janis.
Made it look very easy, didn't he?
Slid right by. All right, but here's the question, David. What is the future of Bjorn Wertheim? You know, it's that, yes, he's winning races, but has he done enough to make an impression along the Formula One pit row.
Unfortunately, I'm not sure that he has. And of course, one of the things that will make a huge impression when there was that terrible gaffe at Monte Carlo.
Well, Bjorn Wertheim, the winner at Silverstone, the British round of the Formula 3000 Championship, his second of the year, stretching out his points lead. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back at Silverstone. They see the helmet of Tonio Liuzzi as he walks into the interview room, or we're actually going to walk up to the podium. He's got a third place to his name. Bjorn Wertheim, the winner here. Giorgio Pantano, second. And Tonio Liuzzi finishing third. In fact, let's take a look at all the results. Wertheim, win number 2 in the season, David.
And flag to flag from his fourth pole, Giorgio Pantano coming up short in second spot. Liuzzi having a pretty good run. Sperafico, Patrick Friesacker, and Enrico Toccacello, sort of his results this year gone up and down like no one's business.
Townsend Bell, nice to see him in the points, getting a couple of points. Nicholas Chiesa, a well-earned point. Had to pass his way into that position. Michael Cohane, not bad, finishing 12th, all things considered. The fact that he hadn't been in an F3000 car before the weekend.
Will Langhorn and Mark Hines in the 2 BCN cars. The others, Schmidt and Gianmaria, both out. Gianmaria took himself off and, of course, made the fatal error of slowing up when he got into the gravel instead of keeping his leg in it.
Team owner Christian Horner, very happy guys. Like I said, not only does he get the victory, both cars come home safely. They can pack them away and take them off to another track.
And there's nothing like a home win, and have to have 2 in a row with Thomas Engel last year, and of course Bjorn Wertheim this year. Here they come out onto the podium.
The first 3.
Tonio Liuzzi only gets his second podium of the year. He's gotten a second once this year. This will be the second time he's been on the podium. And Bjorn Wertheim practically lives up here. Only one single race where he hasn't been on top. What kind of career will it mean for this guy? Will he use Formula 3000 as a stepping stone to Formula One? Well, I guess we're about to find out before too long. Not too much left to go in the season. And that's it for the F3000 British round. We'll be back again in 2 weeks from Germany. We'll have live coverage of the 8th round of the International Formula 3000 Championship from the Hockenheim Ring. Live coverage will start Saturday, August 2nd at 9:30, immediately following Formula One qualifying. And don't forget tomorrow, the British Grand Prix, starting at 7:30 in the morning. So for David Hobbs, Steve Matchett, Peter Windsor, I'm Rick DeBrule. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning for the British Grand Prix.